It was another high-scoring fixture as Arsenal beat Palace 4-0 in the WSL. Two goals from Beth Mead, an Alessia Russo strike, and a Palace own goal sealed the win for the Gunners. It was a big performance from Beth Mead, but also Chloe Kelly as well, who again impressed following that crucial impact that she had against Madrid at the Emirates last week. Before we get on to the Palace game, let's go back to that Madrid game because we've only just briefly touched on it on the pod. But what a night it was! An incredible crowd at the Emirates. I was in block 15, moved away from block 10 for the game, but it was incredible from the minute that it kicked off. We were singing, chanting. Izzy, what was it like for you, obviously being in the press box and seeing that? And could you feel that atmosphere kind of right from the start, even before the game began?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, just starting with the atmosphere in the press box, it was really nervy beforehand. Everyone was kind of a bit quiet and it was a bit kind of, I think everyone just knew how high the stakes were for that game. But then as soon as we came out, Freddie and I actually came and sat out in the press box quite early that evening because I think we knew that the atmosphere and the build up would be amazing. And then I just remember I kept turning to him and saying, "Oh my God, this is amazing," or "Look at all those flags," or just it was so cool and everyone was so loud. And I think even though it was only half full, it just was yeah, crazy atmosphere. And I don't know what the kind of message was in block 15, but it seemed like every single ball, every single tackle, every single save, pass, everything was being cheered for. And it was, yeah, just such a great atmosphere.
Absolutely, and even before we did a pre-match meet-up, and there was always this agreement there wouldn't be a fan walk, but it turned into a fan walk in the end because everybody left at the same time, walked down, got there nice and early. But if we compare that to Block 10, say, where we haven't had that atmosphere at times, the club's clearly addressed that, and they've obviously moved that as well for the Leicester game, which we'll talk about later on. But it's clearly something that the club has thought about and addressed since moving to Block 10, trying to build that atmosphere. But definitely it felt like something special, and I hope that we can continue to build on that and obviously build that atmosphere at the Emirates as well. But let's go back to the Palace game. Obviously the most recent game that Arsenal played, there was some rotation in there from Renee Slagers from that Madrid game. Probably was expecting that. Obviously Nice Wonga coming in for Katie McCabe, who was suspended. There was Leah Volti in for Kim Little, and then Beth Mead, who came in for Caitlin Ford, who has been in form as well. So that was an interesting decision. But Izzy, you were there for the Gooner, and I saw your player ratings, and your highest one went to Chloe Kelly, who got an 8.5, and she was enjoying the fans chanting for her throughout, and then chanting, "Chloe Kelly, we want you to stay." So she's obviously settled in really well at Arsenal, in terms of the fans and that reception that she's received, but also on the pitch as well. What did you kind of make of her performance at the weekend?
Well, I think on the weekend she just built on the amazing performance she put in the Madrid game, and I think she just looks like she's feeling so comfortable on the pitch. Obviously, when she first came to us, she was had to miss out a few games because of being on loan and being cup tied. And since she's had a bit more of a regular kind of position in the team, she's just really, really settled into it. And I think she looks amazing. She's making some great assists, some great crosses. Another one on Sunday. She looked like she really wanted a goal, and obviously went down as an own goal, but she celebrated it as if it was her own. And I think she's just really happy to be at Arsenal. She seems to be enjoying that connection with sort of Beth Mead and Alessia Russo's obviously kind of something they've worked on with England and has managed to translate it to the Arsenal pitch. But yeah, I spoke to her after the game, and obviously everyone was kind of asking about whether she was going to stay or not. But I asked her if she was enjoying her football at the moment because it sort of looks like she is, and she just said that she wanted to get her smile back and that Arsenal has done that for her, which I just thought was such a good quote and hopefully a little bit telling of what she might do in June. But yeah, no, I think she's been fantastic at the moment. I've loved watching her.
Absolutely. I think she's brought something different to Arsenal. We've talked about this on the pod quite a lot in terms of her ability to obviously drive out wide, but also, like you say, the crossing. Like that's something we maybe hadn't touched on at the start or hadn't thought too much about her bringing. But she's done exceptionally well at that, like you say, and linking up with players. We saw that link up with Beth Mead, who also impressed, I thought, in that game. I saw a tweet by WSL Analytics that says she created 4 chances, most in the match, more touches in the opposition box than the entire Palace team, 2 shots, 2 goals, and 100% conversion rate, which is amazing. And that brings her up now to 51 goals for Arsenal, which sits her among the highest scorers, in the history. So what about her performance? Obviously, she linked up really well with Chloe Kelly. Alessia Russo also performed really well. But how do you see kind of Renee Slagers managing that now? Because like we said, Caitlin Ford's also done exceptionally well. You've got Mariona kind of dropping deeper now, but there's still plenty of options for her, and she's obviously got several games and several key games to manage that front line.
Yeah, and I think on Beth Mead, she's had a bit of an up and down season with a couple of matches where she maybe hasn't been on the form that everyone knows and loves. But when she seems to be reliable in the big moments, and I know Palace, I think everyone was quite confident going into that, but she was great on Sunday in that match, and I think she can come back into form when she needs to, and so I think she's definitely not shouldn't always be on the bench as some people are calling for. But yeah, as you said, Caitlin Ford's been brilliant as well. Another one who's recently hit 51 goals for Arsenal. So there's yeah, it seems to be a lot going on, and I think you've just got it. Renee's just got to choose the right person for the right game because Caitlin Ford offers a bit more pace. She seems to be a little bit more technical, whereas Beth Mead is, she's good at putting in a cross, which she sometimes actually scores from. And she has, been there for a bit longer and sometimes just works really well with the other players. So it just kind of depends on the game. And I think Renee's got to make the right decision at the right time to keep them both happy as well, because they're two players that we definitely want to keep hold of, I'd say.
Absolutely, and I think it's a great problem for Renee to have in comparison to the situations that Arsenal have been in before, not being able to score, not being able to finish the chances that they got, and we've come so far from that. I mean, it was another dominant performance from Arsenal, 74% possession, 17 shots in total, 7 on target. That was Palace had 0 shots on target in the entire game, so obviously still defensively solid, and it's something I know that they really want to do. 21 wins for season, 26 games now. The big discussion obviously is on that goal scoring record, but also managing those players and how she's going to do that. Another area that we see that in is in midfield. When they came back against Madrid, they needed 3 goals, and we saw Renee drop Mariona into that deeper position. Is that something that obviously Sagers has considered in specific game, obviously just for Madrid, but do you think that's something she'll consider going forward? I mean, if you look at Kyra Cooney-Cross, who started the season so well, fantastic player, still got so much potential and so much involvement to have at Arsenal. Renee talked about this as well, saying that we've got 5. She spoke to you and when you spoke to her with for the Guna and said we've got 5 midfielders at the moment available. It's high competition, and we try to use everybody to the strength in moments and games. How do you think? Obviously, Renee's going to manage that. We've got Kafaji in there as well, which we'll touch on. Do you think this is going to be a new role for Mariona, or is it going to be specific to the game and utilising the different players in different scenarios?
Well, I think that for the Madrid game, it was about, I think, when we were actually away in Madrid, Mariona really struggled to get into the game. And I think that moving her a bit deeper in the second leg, because Madrid know her so well because they've played against her at Barcelona so much. And I think she was able to, from that deeper role, kind of be a little bit more surprising to their defence. And that when she scored that header, she came from quite far back to come forward and score that, and they no one was on her to cover that shot. So I think, and she's a player that you just don't want to take out of the starting lineup because she's been so amazing for us this season, and she's just such a great player. So I think it's going to be about, with that midfield, just coming up with the combinations that work, because at the moment, Kim Little's still starting quite a lot, and recently she's been on great form, which has been amazing to see because we've obviously got her for another season after this. And she was being quite physical in the Madrid game, and she was great against Palace at the weekend. Oh no, she didn't play when she came on against Palace at the weekend. She was straight in there. So yeah, I don't know. I think, as Renee said, it's really competitive, but I'd love to see Kyra come back into that starting 11 because she's been, for me, one of the players of the season, and she's so great on the turn. She's great defensively and great in attack, and I just think it would be a waste to not use her. We've not used her for a couple of weeks, and it's been a shame, but it was nice to see her come on and get some minutes on Sunday, and remind us and what she can do. But yeah, you've also got Leah Valti, who's very reliable, but again, she's kind of probably coming to the end of her career. So, it's about bringing in those younger players, and yeah, Rose Kafaji, as you said. But yeah, I think it's going to be a difficult decision for Renee, but something that's exciting. And as you say, good problem to have.
Yeah, definitely. It's the same as that front line, obviously. And when you bring Palova back in there, who I think has just settled straight back into it, like she's never been away. And obviously, they're managing minutes with her injury, and obviously it being a long-term serious injury. I want to touch back on Rosa Kafaji. You obviously spoke to Renee Slagers. She'd made all 5 substitutions. She's using different players. And when she was asked about Kafaji's performance, she said to you she wants it very badly. She wants to play and she wants to get involved. And I think it is hard when you get little time on the pitch. You want to do everything all at once. And so that's maybe what you saw a little bit of today. She then went on to say she's working really hard in training as well, and I think you saw all the potential she has and the quality she has today. I wanted to ask you about that because obviously it's been an interesting scenario with Rosa Kafaji. She's a young talent that's come in. She's still very young. I think she's 21 years old. She's played obviously in Sweden. Obviously it takes time. Kyra had to wait for her chance to get into this Arsenal side, and it does kind of work like that sometimes. Kafaji definitely has those strengths, and it's about, I guess, Renee Slager's playing to that. I wanted to get your thoughts on that, and obviously managing that with Palova, Kyra, Mariona, Kim, Wally, all of the different players that we've got. How do you see that playing out? And is it a case of her just maybe waiting for that opportunity and taking it when it comes?
Yeah, I think she does have to be patient, and we've seen her kind of post various things on social media which have sort of undertones of her being frustrated and that, understandably so. If she's not really played much football at all this season, and she's made this big move away from Häcken where she was playing a lot of minutes, and she's come to Arsenal, and it's probably not how she expected it to be. She probably thought she'd be, straight into the team a bit more regularly. But yeah, I know when I asked Renee about it, she kind of laughed a little bit. I don't know if people can hear it in the video, but she kind of just sort of looked down and laughed, and just said, "Oh, she's just trying to do everything all at once," which she is definitely, and it's quite obvious. But Renee kind of said it herself. When you've got little time on the pitch, it's really difficult to show what you can do, and she's obviously just trying to get a goal and make an assist and defend, and that's great because we want people who are versatile. But I think she needs to settle into a role, whether that's in the 10 or deeper in the midfield, or I don't know if she could play on the wing. She just needs to find somewhere where she can really focus on nailing that set of skills and playing that position and what she can really offer to the side, and then hopefully she'll sort of get a few more minutes. But I think there's only 4 WSL matches that left this season. Hopefully we'll see her coming on in a couple of those, but I don't think she's going to be playing in the Champions League against Lyon. But yeah, I'd love to see her kind of work her way into it, and perhaps over the summer and everything, then we might see her become more comfortable and confident. But yeah, it's been a shame for her, but I do understand where Renee's coming from.
Yeah, definitely, and it's obviously a time thing as well. We'll see how Arsenal progress, and obviously, like you say, big games coming up, and Rene has to think about that and think about the team and the opponent and everything like that. So it's definitely interesting to see. And we've talked about players being quite versatile. Mariona's played so many different positions. Every single player really has had to play, multiple positions at times. Russo played out on the wing. She played the 10. She's playing back up front now. But I think maybe, like you say, that could be the case for Kafaji. We might not necessarily see her stay in the same role, but it's about having that impact when she's given the opportunity. And potentially, like you mentioned, with Mariona maybe playing a deeper role, that number 10 is still available. Frida Mann has been playing a lot in that position, and she's definitely had an impact, but it definitely don't think that's a solidified position at all. I don't think any are really. So it's interesting to see how that progresses and see how the season goes on, obviously looking forward as well to next season. But also, it's not just the goal scoring. I think, Renee Slagers has only conceded, well, Arsenal have only conceded 18 goals under Renee Slagers, and they've opted for that same back line of Fox, McKay, Williamson and Catley, and obviously Van Domselaar as well. But it was Jenna Nijswanger who came in for Katie McKay, probably a decision that we would have expected. But how do you think she did in that game? Because she's still adjusting, I think, to playing in a new league. But I actually thought she performed quite well, and she definitely offered Arsenal a lot going forward.
Yeah, definitely. I think I was a bit nervous of how she was going to react to starting because it was her first WSL start. So obviously something she's not used to. But I thought she really, as the minutes went on, she really settled into the game. It was a little bit touch and go at first, but that's understandable. And yeah, she really settled into it. She made some great runs forward. She made some great crosses into the box. Unfortunately, no one sort of really got on the end of them. But she showed some great pace, which I don't think a lot of people realised that she had because we've not seen a lot of her play this season. But yeah, really fast on the left hand side, and I think a really good alternative to Katie McCabe. To be fair, Renee herself said that they both have quite similar qualities, and obviously Jenna's a lot younger. But yeah, she hasn't played a lot, and she's not had a USA call up for this international break. So I wonder whether she'll be working even harder to play more minutes. But she said she's happy on the bench and pushing for that starting spot because she wants to challenge those regular starters and become more of an option for Renee. But yeah, I think she was great, and I was really pleased because when you sign a new player and you don't see a lot of them straight away, you're not sure whether it was a bit of a waste of time. But actually, yeah, she was great, and I'm excited to see what else she can bring.
Yeah, definitely. And I think it's that competition that's going to help, Arsenal. We've talked about it, the fact that maybe other teams have that stronger squad depth, especially Chelsea. They've brought in a lots of different players and they've got multiple people competing for the same position. And Katie McCabe has had quite, since got into that left back role, she's had quite an easy one in terms of competition. She's obviously provided a lot for Arsenal and she's a fantastic player, but it's nice that players are now being tested in their position and there's others coming through who might push them to be even better or try even harder, or even like you say with Jenna being younger, come in and potentially learn from Katie and perfect that role and kind of grow in her role. But it'll be interesting to see as well how that plays out. And Arsenal need that squad depth and they need that going forward, especially if they're going to challenge even beyond this season. But if we look at this season, there's only four WSL games left to go. We've got Leicester, which has just been moved to the Emirates, Villa away, Brighton away, and then a final day when we play Man United at the Emirates, which is looking like it's going to be an absolutely huge game in the terms of the title race in general, but also the league. Arsenal are on 42 points, six behind Chelsea, who dropped points to West Ham. An equal goal difference now that they seem to have matched Chelsea, same goal scored and conceded. We know that this is an unlikely task to win the league at this point, but it is mathematically possible. And then we've got obviously that small task of taking on Lyon in a Champions League semi-final. Rene's always talked about focusing on like one game at a time, but what do you think the end of the season looks like for Arsenal? What do they kind of do now? Do they just kind of take each game as it comes and see what happens and hope that maybe others drop off, or do you think they're happy with just focusing on themselves and kind of pushing for that Champions League trophy?
I think they need to focus on themselves and they need to, ultimately the Champions League is, whilst really the most difficult, is the most likely to for us to win because the league is only 4 games left. There's not a lot we can do except wait for Chelsea to mess up. So it's difficult. But with the Champions League, we obviously want to put loads of focus onto that, but at the same time, we've got to keep an eye on the WSL because whilst there's 4 games of teams that we could that they're not too difficult. United probably the most challenging out of the four. We just don't want to take our eye off the ball and suddenly drop points at the end of the season, and then we could end up not in the Champions League for next year if it went badly. And I think it's about having equal focus on everything. And I think Renee does stress that. She always says that in her press conference that it's about moving on from the game before and looking ahead to the next one and only focusing on that one that you're about to play. So it sounds like they've got quite a good system for keeping everyone's heads in the right place. But yeah, it's exciting. I think two away games, 2 home games, both at the Emirates. That's going to be really great, as you said, especially with the kind of moving of the fan club block to block 15. I wonder whether they'll keep that for the United game as well, because I'm imagining that's going to be a sellout that day. Nice, hopefully sunny day in May. Lunchtime kickoff, I think. So yeah, but I mean, it does feel like the end of the season's crept up on us super quickly, and I think once Leon's out the way, then it'll be all eyes on United, I'd say.
Absolutely, yeah. And obviously that big upcoming fixtures. I think Lyon is obviously the big one. That's going to be the 19th of April. Like you say, early kickoff, 12:30 kickoff, and then the away leg the following Sunday, the 27th. That's a 5 p.m. UK kickoff. So 25,000 tickets already sold for the home leg, obviously building on that fantastic night that we had at the Emirates against Madrid. What do we think about the decision to have the 12:30 kickoff? Obviously, I think it was an interesting one because I don't think I was expecting it. Obviously, the Madrid game was a late kickoff and it worked really well. So we've got big crowd, 12:30 kickoff. What are we expecting from that one? And why do you think Arsenal decided to kind of go with that early kickoff? And how do you think that's going to fare on the crowd, the atmosphere, the performance, etc.?
I mean, I think they'll definitely sell more tickets because it's easier to get that. But I think they would have done that with the later kickoff anyway because it is on a weekend.
Yeah.
So I'm not entirely sure. I think when you have a lunchtime kickoff, you get more of the families, which is obviously lovely. But I think what made a lot of difference on the Madrid game was the fact that it was a much more adult crowd,
Yeah.
and everyone, I think, really, really understood the stakes and really got behind the team because they had a complete understanding of what was going on. And not to say that the kids don't add a great kind of angle to the atmosphere because they do, and it's fantastic, especially in the WSL this season. It's been great. But yeah, I'm not sure. I don't know if it'll feel like Champions League because it'll be daylight. I know that that's just something that everyone associates with nights under the lights. I think it's a bit of a shame because they could have even gone for a sort of 5:30 kickoff, which it still would have been light, but sort of that evening, you have all day build up. I think it does make a difference, but hopefully they've made an educated decision and gone for the 12:30 kickoff, and they've got their reasons behind that. But 25,000 tickets sold already is fantastic. Still got, was almost 3 weeks until it happens in 2.5 weeks. And so, yeah, I think it's going to be brilliant. I'm hoping it'll sell out because it's always amazing to have a sellout, and it's Champions League semi-final. So you want as many people there as possible. But yeah, I'd love for the atmosphere to be recreated from the Madrid game because it was great. I'm sure you probably feel the same being in the crowd.
Yeah, definitely. And thinking back also to that Wolfsburg game, which was so huge in such a tough time for Arsenal, and came out of that game obviously not getting through to the final, but still feeling like it was a fantastic game, and also it didn't feel like a defeat. And I think that definitely is helped by the atmosphere, pushing that sellout crowd. I do think they'll hopefully get that. 12:30 kickoff is, yeah, it is interesting because it's more about that pre-match and building it up. But then again, if I look to Spurs this season at the Emirates, which I really enjoyed, the North London derby, that was an early kickoff, 12:30, and even before that, we were there nice and early, fan walk, etc. So there's definitely so much potential there, and obviously with 25,000 tickets already being sold, like you say, it can only get better. I definitely think the decision to move to Block 15 is helped massively, and I think it helped build the atmosphere before the Madrid game. Even though we were kind of split across that entire side, there was people standing up everywhere, and just it was incredible from even before when they were warming up, before it even kicked off. So I think it's going to help massively, and it obviously clearly helped against Madrid, and we can obviously build on that. But we have got the difficult task of playing the home leg first and then going away, so we can't rely on a comeback at the Emirates this time. It may fare that might be quite difficult for Arsenal, but they're going to have to do really, really well in that first leg and hope that they can come up against a really tough side in Lyon who have done extremely well. But before all of that, we've got that WSL match against Leicester that's obviously been rescheduled following the semi-final fixtures. That's now happening on Tuesday, the 15th of April at a 7:30 kickoff. Moved to the Emirates from Meadow Park, also on a Tuesday night. I want to ask you about that decision. Why do you think they've decided to kind of move that game to the Emirates? Is it a case of it just being the availability of the stadium, or is it a case of building on that atmosphere in Block 15 prior to obviously playing Lyon?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know whether it was partly because we've obviously had a couple of games moved from the Emirates to Meadow Park this season due to the men's scheduling, and maybe it's like, we're owed another Emirates evening, and it just works out really well because obviously with the Liverpool game ahead of the Madrid game at the Emirates, it was, obviously the players are used to playing at the Emirates, but they had a great win followed by a great win, and I think it really sort of set the foundations for, okay, we've played a great game here, so we can go and do that again 4 days later. And the fans, obviously, it's much easier for fans to get to. You can get more fans in, and I think it just adds another layer to it. And in the WSL, I think last year the Leicester match around this time of year was at the Emirates as well, and it was about 40,000. I went there, was on a sort of Saturday, I think, but hopefully a Tuesday night, it'll be full, and as you said, it'll be a good kind of starting point for the Lyon match. Yeah, I think it'll be nice. It's nice to play as many games as possible at the Emirates. It's a totally different match day experience. Obviously, Meadow Park's great, so intimate, so close to the pitch. But with that Block 15, I can't remember whether you said, are you in Block 15 for that game as well?
Yeah,
And what do you think the kind of difference is with being in Block 15? Do you think it's because you're on the side and kind of the sound travels better around the pitch, or what do you think the kind of difference is and why the club have done it?
yeah, I think for sure, like with Block 10, we've obviously discussed the fact that it has been quite difficult to build the atmosphere. It has definitely got better as the season's gone on, and maybe it was just a case of adjusting to moving to a new block. I think the big thing was the divide. Last season, we obviously were in Block 2, split across that side. Right near where obviously the subs and the benches and everything, and then obviously they said, right, we're going to move to Block 10 now. That did happen for some people, but others chose to stay, so now you're splitting the crowd and the singing crowd between two blocks, and it is quite difficult at the Emirates. Sound just doesn't travel like when you're not all in one place. And yeah, like you say, moving to Block 15, we're all on one side, we're all in the same area, and it can travel. So even if you're in the Block 14 or you're in Block 16, everyone together is collectively, hearing each other singing, joining in, and that was evident at the Madrid game. And I'm interested to see what it's like against, obviously, Madrid. Higher stakes. We needed to be behind the team, we needed to come back from behind. But if you think about like how much we need every single point that we can get in the WSL, especially if we're going to push right to the very end, even if just to get second. Leicester is going to be an interesting one. We'll see how the atmosphere is, and obviously an interesting kind of opponent as well because like we said with Palace, you expect Arsenal to go into that game and get the win, but anything can happen in the WSL. West Ham getting point against Chelsea. How do you feel about that Leicester game? Obviously, it's the next one. It's a little bit time to go before that because we've got the international break, and I think that's obviously where Arsenal's next focus will be. But is this supposed to be kind of a routine win for Arsenal, or with it being at the Emirates as well? And it's interesting to see how Arsenal kind of go up against Leicester, and they should really be getting 3 points, but we'll kind of see how Rene rotates and obviously how the international break goes as well.
Yeah, I think it should be a routine win, but it's always tricky when it's the first match back after the international break because everyone's, we have a lot of Australians, Americans in this team that have travelled miles to come back. There's the jet lag and other people playing in Europe, and I do think that that always makes a difference, but hopefully because we have got good squad depth at the moment with, not a lot of injured players that Rene can make those rotations and play those players who haven't been traveling 24 hours back from Australia, for example. And yeah, we've got great people to do that. And I think that especially before the Lyon game, it might be a good opportunity to try out a new midfield combination or to try Rosa Kafaji in the 10, for example. And I think it could be a good opportunity to showcase what kind of squad depth we have got and kind of the fact that Rene is able to make those rotations. But also, yeah, good warm up for the Lyon match. Completely different opponent, obviously, but yeah, it's I when I spoke to Renee and Leah Williamson ahead of the Madrid game, they said that having a win before a big game just shows you that you can do it and it just gives an extra layer of confidence. So hopefully that will be the case for the Leicester game.
Yeah, definitely. And that obviously that 4-0 win that we got against Liverpool at the Emirates, like you say, helped so much going into that Madrid game. Hopefully a win against Leicester will help going into Lyon. And then I think there'll be Aston Villa game away that will have to be rescheduled because that was the weekend that we obviously are now going to play Lyon away in Lyon. So we'll see
Yeah.
where I don't know if they've rescheduled that or confirmed that yet, but that obviously will have to be moved as well. And obviously that might play to their advantages. But it is a lot of games, and this is like the perfect time for Arsenal to have that squad depth, to utilise different players, like you say, to maybe try Kafaji, maybe give Pullover more minutes, manage the minutes of Catley, hopefully, who's played a lot of football. But it
Yeah.
hasn't helped that obviously Catley's kind of the only option with I think Ruben Moyes been out, Kadina's been out, and they've been bringing in Ilestead here and there, but not really giving her too many minutes. So it has meant that Leah Williamson and Steph Catley have obviously had to play a lot at centre back, but they've done so well in that position. And yeah, it's interesting to see how we manage that going forward. But the season has come like the end of the season has come around so quickly. Like it's crazy that we're now going into a semi-final of the Champions League, we're going into the final four fixtures of the WSL. I just feel like it's gone so quick, and obviously before that international break the next 2 weeks, I think. So we've got plenty of Gunners in actions for the national teams. Interesting that obviously Palova has returned for the Netherlands, and Illersted's gone and returned to Sweden as well. So it's a lot of people, going back into their national sides following injury. It's not the most exciting international break, I wouldn't say, but obviously we'll keep an eye on all the Gunners that are in action. We've got obviously the Lionesses, we've got Steph and Kyra and Caitlin, obviously for Australia, and plenty of young gunners as well in action for the respective under 23 and under 19 side. So I think the under 19 Lioness won 6-0 yesterday. So lots of amazing performances from the young gunners as well. But there's lots more coverage going to come from us. Obviously, there's that big fixture against Lyon where we're going to be covering that following the international break and over the international break. I feel like it's going to be a huge one, and I feel like Arsenal are going to have an incredible home support and incredible travelling support again. I'm sure we're looking forward to that one and hoping that we're gonna finish on a positive and have
Yeah.
that positive end to the season. But yeah, thank you so much for joining me. Obviously, we'll have plenty of coverage coming and talking about all the big fixtures and lots more that's going to happen over the next few weeks. But we'll make sure we cover that for you guys. But yeah, thank you for joining me, Izzy, and it's been great to chat about all the exciting
Yeah.
things that I feel like have happened in such a short period of time.
No, I know there's been loads, but yeah, as I said, I'll be in the press box hopefully for Leicester home and for the first leg against Lyon. So yeah, lots of good coverage to come, and fingers crossed and for the Arsenal. So yeah,
Yeah, looking forward to it. Hopefully some big results and a
yeah,
positive end to the season.
be amazing.